Hey everybody, it's Ryan. So Sony just had their 2017 Paris Games Week press conference, and we're going to go over the entire conference via a recap and impressions, and then maybe a little Q&A after. So, starting it off, as always, you can jump to impressions right here for a timestamp, but if you didn't see the event, or if you want to know everything that happened, or a quick recap about what actually went down, I'll provide that to you right now. And what's interesting is that this time, the past few shows, they've been including a lot of their announcements into their pre-show, but this time the pre-show was actually an hour long, and it seems like they're making the pre-show much longer, including not super meaty announcements, but certainly things you would definitely care about this time. Whereas, 4 or 5 years ago, a pre-show, they'd have almost nothing in there, and they, just be a bunch of pointless talking. So we'll go over that as well. So anyway, moving into the pre-show, mind you, they kick it off immediately with Guacamelee 2 being announced. That's pretty awesome. I love Guacamelee. Then moving into the Hong Kong Massacre, this was announced as well. Brand new game, looks very interesting. Then moving on to the Gardens Between, this was announced as well. Very artistically approached looking game, kind of a puzzle. You manipulate time. That's pretty dope. Moving into Loco Roco 2 Remastered, we get a release date December 9th for PlayStation 4. If you were looking forward to that, that's when you can expect that. Moving into The Sims 4, a trailer, a promise of all the content from the PC being in this game. Apparently, this version of the game will also continuously get updates from the PC version as well. Moving into Tennis World Tour, that's announced as well. If you wanted a tennis game for your PS4 and you wanted it to be extra cool and good and realistic, you can expect that. Then Megalith for PlayStation VR. Keep in mind that we got a lot of PSVR coming up. So Megalith was announced, and then Bouts of Blood for PlayStation VR. This was also shown off. Kind of looks like you're commanding some giant ship or something. Then Ultra Wings for PlayStation VR. So if you are into flying around, you might want to keep your eyes peeled for that. Sprint Vector. If you wanted a simulation for puking, you can definitely expect this game. Actually, no. Apparently there's some sort of special locomotion for this game to make it a little more easy to play, and I don't know. But initially my thought looking into this is like, oh god, how am I going to play this? Then we got new footage of Moss for PSVR. So this game we knew about already. It's that cute little mouse walking around, a platformer. I think I love this little guy. Sign me up as interested for this one. I want to see more of this game as well. Star Child trailer. So this looks, interesting. They've got my interest here. Moving into Resident Evil 7, Not a Hero DLC, and then showing off the Gold Edition. So giving us a little sneak peek into that stuff. Then we get some announcements. Dead Hungry announced for PSVR. This is actually from the, if you remember the Pixel Junk series on PlayStation 3. I already forgot the name of the studio that makes all those games, but this looks like a pretty silly game. And then Stifled for PSVR. So actually, Dead Hungry and Stifled are coming out tomorrow. So October 31st, Stifled looks pretty creepy, to be honest. Then League of War. This is a League of War VR Arena. One of those kind of social VR games they're trying to go for again. Final Fantasy 15 Episode Ignis. This was shown off in greater detail, which is cool. Invector for PlayStation VR. Some more music rhythm action for you. And then it's pronounced Aure, I think, and this is for PS4, available right now, which is pretty cool. I like when they do that stuff. And then Spelunky 2 is announced. So if you like some Spelunky, you're probably going to be pretty happy about this. Now going into the main show. Now we're actually into the main press conference. Ghost of Tsushima announced by this is Sucker Punch's new IP. So this is open world. We got a pretty cool trailer. Looks fantastic. I mean, my god. I didn't actually expect Sucker Punch to be here. I would have thought that they would save that for PSX or E3 next year, but we finally know what Sucker Punch is doing. It's Ghost of Tsushima. Then Jim Ryan takes the stage. Going into some game announcements, Concrete Genie announced. This looks very interesting. Another, it's like a more out there sort of game, right? You can see that you're painting stuff on the walls, kind of got a supernatural aspect to it. Moving into Erica, this is announced for PS4. It's part of the Sony's PlayLink initiative, so you're using your phones and whatnot to interact with this game. Take that for what it is. Then they move into a little PlayStation VR showcase, showing some more VR stuff. Then we go into Blood and Truth for PSVR. Blood and Truth, right away you'll be able to tell that this is actually London Heist turned into a full game. London Heist from PSVR Worlds. So, which is cool. I like this a lot because London Heist I thought was probably the best part about VR Worlds, and now it's getting its own game. So I'm happy about that. Far Cry 5 trailer. If you like your Far Cry, you should be excited about this. We don't see too much of it though, so it's kind of a short trailer. Then Destiny 2 Curse of Osiris. If if Destiny's your thing, then I'm sure you're pleased about that. I really couldn't care about it, but I know a lot of people are really into Destiny nowadays. Monster Hunter World trailer. Great to see more Monster Hunter. What's also pretty cool is you can play as Aloy in this game, which is very fitting. So on the PlayStation 4, you'll be able to play as Aloy. Call of Duty World War II trailer. The DLC will be first on PS4, as if we didn't see that coming. A trailer for Onrush. Looks, interesting for sure. Then Star Wars Battlefront 2 trailer. Some more Star Wars stuff there. Then Spiderman. We get a trailer for Insomniac Spider-Man, and this is actually a pretty thorough trailer. This is probably the most we've seen of the game in a pretty extended look, because we're seeing like cutscenes and things like that, and the actual story play out. And actually, I think that this game's really shaping up to look very good. Then my game of the show, honestly, which you'll be surprised by me saying that based on the end of this show, but Detroit Become Human trailer. My God, you guys know I keep saying this over and over again. I'm very excited for Detroit Become Human, and god damn, this trailer was fucking awesome, dude. Oh, jeez. Just go watch it yourself. I'm not even going to try and convince you otherwise about why it was awesome. It should be evident to you. Then we go into God of War. God of War, we get more... we don't get too much time with this, but we see some more gameplay. I guess what's interesting is that you get to see Atreus kind of interact with you a little bit in the game and see how he's, fighting with you and whatnot and talking with you, kind of playing that Ellie role from, like, Last of Us, but it's at the same time, you don't have... Sony Santa Monica has already said a number of times you don't necessarily have to watch over him. He takes care of himself. Then Horizon the Frozen Wilds trailer, that's coming out relatively soon, so Sony wants to remind you of that. Then Shadow of the Colossus trailer. And not even... It's like a pretty decent amount of gameplay. We're actually just watching the pursuit of a Colossi, and this looks real. This is really looking great. I'm really getting down with the whole... not just a straight-up HD remaster. Let's really go back and redo these games. I'm really enjoying this, and Shadow of the Colossus is looking great. The show ends with a trailer for what doesn't appear to be anything until you realize that clickers come out of nowhere. It's The Last of Us Part 2. I am sort of baffled that people are watching this trailer and thinking Ellie's in this... Nobody's in this trailer that we can see. That's the whole point of the trailer, is that you're kind of watching it and you're wondering, God, what the hell is this? It looks fantastic. This, that, and the other. You're trying to wonder what it is, but then clickers show up and it's The Last of Us Part 2. No, Ellie or Joel, nobody's seen in this trailer, but it also is pretty mind-blowing to say the least. And that, my friends, is everything that was announced at Paris Games Week 2017. I think it was a very good show. The funny thing is, if you remember when E3 happened, and it was very underwhelming for a lot of people, because all we really got was just a bunch of trailers for games that we already knew about, and that's the thing. And granted, they're new trailers, it's new footage of games, and those are always very enjoyable things. It's what I always keep echoing, is that people want to see entirely new things. Once you announce a game, the impact of it's there, and then if you just start seeing it the next 3 trade shows, then it kind of... Despite the fact that it's new footage every single trade show, that excitement starts to wear thin. People want to continuously see a stream of new content, which is kind of not really fair in terms of judgment, but that's how a lot of people see it. So E3 was very underwhelming. This year, for Paris Games Week, much bigger show than E3. And Sony was even at the very final few days, and we didn't even get to talk about it in LTPS, but Sony was saying that this is going to be the other half of E3. And I can certainly see that, especially given the fact that Sucker Punch was here. I really thought that they would have saved Sucker Punch's game for PSX or E3, and some people are saying that they included it in this show to kind of take the spotlight away from Microsoft, which, sure, maybe that's the case. I don't entirely buy that. Sony just doesn't care what Microsoft's doing, and even more so because Sony is doing fine. They're not afraid of Microsoft. They're not worried about it. Who cares? They don't care about the Xbox One X. So, and trade shows and things like that of the sort are planned, months ahead of time. Which, yeah, we knew about the X1X months ahead of time, but it's still a long-term thing too, where they think, okay, well, they got to figure out the timeline of like, all right, maybe we can get this one into E3 2017, but we have to also think about 2018. Whose project's going to be ready by 2019? We might be able to include in that show. They still think about these things in the very long term. So, but at the very least, A lot of good stuff. I'll also note a lot of PlayStation VR stuff. That's great because PlayStation VR is still a great platform. You still got a lot of naysayers out there that think it's a gimmick, that think it's like a move, like a Kinect. And FYI, Kinect just recently, Microsoft stopped manufacturing of Kinect just last week. That was also announced, so that's kind of a big deal, right? Especially for Microsoft because they were so pushy with that thing in the beginning. But it's not like this isn't like a regular peripheral. This is a full platform that really works in a very convincing way, assuming you have a development studio and a proper game that really demonstrates why it works as well as it does. And at the very least, if VR doesn't have the impact on consumers, if it never really truly succeeds and it prematurely dies once again, at the very least you have to understand Sony is being pretty aggressive with the support. That's another thing too, is that when you look at all those other peripherals of you know how many years ago, whether it was PlayStation Eye, the iToy, the Kinect, the Move controllers, you gotta look at all those things and realize that the support for those things was always hit or miss here and there every so often. You'd have a major headlining PlayStation 3 game or Xbox 360 game, but it just like has slightly added Kinect or Move support, and it's like nobody's gonna play the game like that. This is a platform that really works, and Sony is consistently keeping the games flowing on it. So, and that's something Sony gets criticized for quite often when it comes to anything they do with any platform, whether it's Vita or any peripherals or hardware or initiatives or services that they release, which is that, oh, where's the support, Sony? Things like PlayStation Home dying and whatnot. People want to see that support. So the fact that we got so many PlayStation VR games here announced, it's funny to see people getting all annoyed by, oh, these VR games. Well, that's the point. You want games. You want you want a reason to buy a PlayStation VR, and you want current owners to buy games. So that's great. Yeah, like I said, Detroit Become Human, that trailer was just everything to me. You guys know I love those kind of games, and David Cage still gets a lot of shit. I think this is it for him. I think this is Quantic Dream's game. I really think this is going to blow it out of the water. I would be severely upset if this game comes out and it's nothing short of amazing. From what we've seen so far, I just can't picture it being a bad game. It's got to be good. I think this certainly has the potential to do far better than Beyond Two Souls, and people, that's the one game that people look at as like, okay, Heavy Rain was like their best game. I think this is for sure going to kick Heavy Rain's ass. This game's going to be awesome. I hope. I just can't see it happening. And then Last of Us Part 2. Yeah, that trailer, what is interesting about that trailer for me is that I want to know the context of that scene, because it's pretty brutal, and that's the thing I was suspecting, like, the first, like, a minute in when I just saw how, bleak it was. I'm like, this has got to be Naughty Dog. This has got to be Last of Us 2, because it's just, and then, the dude takes a fucking hammer to or the woman takes I don't know, somebody takes a hammer to the chick's arm, and I'm just like, god damn, this has got to be, it's got to be Last of Us 2. Ghost of Tsushima, good lord, I want to see more of that for sure. It's great to see Sucker Punch's new game. What's also interesting is that I predicted that Sucker Punch was going to announce their new game at E3, and I was wrong about that, but we did see it here, and I also predicted that it was going to be an open world new IP. So I was right about that. They are staying with the open world thing, and that's that's their bread and butter. I'm glad that they're sticking to that. And it's a new IP. I had a feeling they were going to move on from Infamous, and this looks pretty. It's as far as I can tell, this is going to be a somewhat realistic game. They're sticking out, they're kind of, I know it's just one trailer, but it seems as if they're moving away from supernatural powers and, the fictional world of that stuff. It looks like this is going to be more true to, like, it's just a more grounded story, you know what I mean? So I want to see more of that as well. But I thought it was a good show. I don't think it was fantastic. Some people might say that. The only reason why I wouldn't say it's fantastic is just because, like, again, a lot of footage that we've already seen a lot of third party, and I'm just judging it on the merits of like everyone wants to see new stuff, and we got a lot of new stuff, but a lot of it was shoved into the pre-show, which I guess that's probably Sony's strategy moving forward, is that a lot of stuff that they, you know, typically would squeeze into the main show, which would make their main trade, because a lot of Sony's trade shows always go further than like an hour and a half usually. So I think what they want to do now is start taking things that they would normally keep in an hour and a half show and move it to the pre-show to make their main, you know, stage time about an hour. That seems like that's the direction that they're going into, and it actually seems to make sense. I'm sure they're, you know, okay with that. I would assume most people are going to be okay with that as well. But with that said, let's go to Twitter and take some questions. I asked you guys to tweet me any questions. If you wanted to send me something, I would be happy to answer them. At Pep Leader said that's not Ellie, right? But she looks so much like her. Maybe her mom. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But it's definitely not Ellie. I don't know. I'm kind of surprised people are getting confused by that. It's not her voice. It's not her. You know, she doesn't have the tattoo. She doesn't have the bite on her wrist. It's not Ellie. Do you think they showed a little too much? Not in particular. I still think there's a number of things they could be showing. I feel like too much would be like when they have a gameplay section that's like upwards of 10 minutes long, or they're announcing something that's like 3 years out or something. I mean, they're sticking close to a lot of things that are going to be coming in with like the first half of 2018. Ghost of Tsushima, I would expect that probably 2019, unless that game is much further along than we thought, and maybe we can expect it for holiday 2018. But it seems like a lot of the stuff that they did announce is relatively close anyway. At Avenged Jose, why didn't they show more of Days Gone? Maybe because they just don't have anything ready to show, or you know, they got other shows that they can keep these things. I would expect Days Gone probably at PSX for sure. Do you think Sony pushed VR correctly here? Keep seeing cool games for it, but not enough for me to warrant the purchase yet. Yeah, I think they did absolutely do it correctly, and what's the correct way? I would say lots of software, and I guess at the very least, maybe the one thing they're not getting right is compelling software, because if that's the problem for you, Ben, then I would say, you know, that's the one thing they're really missing. And I can agree with you too. I mean, it's a lot of VR software, but a lot of it still looks very, you know, a lot of the VR titles just seem very meh. That's like the best way to put it. And I can see that. What's funny is that, you know, how I was thinking about it was a lot of VR titles are they look very low budget, or they look very cartoony, or they look very colorful, but, you know, they're not these more big budget, you know, console-like games, if you know what I mean, right? And what I think about it is, okay, VR is a new platform. It's kind of like it's starting from ground zero, right? Where you're starting with, like, if you remember, like in the PlayStation 2, a bunch of cartoony platformers, you know, not really super realistic-looking games like that, right? And I'm thinking, all right, well, VR is a new platform. Maybe this is just the first run of PlayStation VR, of most VR games, where the games have to be more cartoony, more, you know, like less intensive on the hardware, I guess, if it's not, and this is granted if it's not a big budget developer, because if a big budget developer was working on VR, you can get something like Resident Evil 7 out of it. But a lot of other developers that are working on it are making like almost PS2 style games on it to just, you know, get it out there, and then you would expect, what, 5 years later, the next generation of VR devices, when there's much more graphically intensive, capable machines out there, you could probably get more compelling games out of the hardware, and you get a lot more developers that could work on it. JJ Frantic says, what does this leave for PSX? Hard dates for everything? Conference feels unnecessary now. Good point. And this was always my worry, is that they still have so many conferences. We know what a lot of their developers are doing now. So it's like, what is going to be for PSX? What is going to be for E3 next year? The honest answer is I'm not really sure. We still have Days Gone. We still have Death Stranding. We still have Dreams. And those are pretty big, major headlining games. And they can still squeeze in a lot of those smaller titles, the kind of games that you would see in this pre-show, like I was just talking about. You could probably maybe see them squeeze into the main show. I'm not sure. Surely they can. That's the thing. No matter what, Sony and even Microsoft or Nintendo, any manufacturer is going to be able to fill stage time. It's just a matter of how good is that stage time going to be. So that's my concern. You're going to get a show. I just don't know if it's going to be a really interesting show. But if any of those games interest you, then you could probably expect those. Rob the Zombie, what did you think of the new Spider-Man trailer, Ryan? Yeah, the Spider-Man trailer I really enjoyed. I'll be the first to admit, when Spider-Man was announced for PS4, I didn't really care, and I knew it was like a good-looking game. I knew this was probably going to be a meaningful game for a lot of people. Just wasn't really for me, and then we saw more footage of it, and I'm like, yeah, okay, this looks cool. This was the first footage I've seen of it where I actually, like, I'm intrigued. Like, it looked really good, and I think what did it was just seeing more of the actual story aspect to it, I guess, to see some cutscenes and a little insight into what's actually going on. I don't know, initially I was just like, Spider-Man, okay. But now that I'm seeing Insomniac really flex their game here, I'm thinking, all right, I'm getting on board now. All right, this video is going a little bit too long, so I guess we'll end it here. That was 2017 for Sony Paris Games Week. Recap, impressions, all that good stuff. We still got PSX coming, so that's in December. I forget the actual conference date. It's like 8th, 9th, or 10th, one of those days. But, you know, we'll keep it all glued and centered in there. Also, obviously, we didn't have the Knack Let's Play today because I knew we'd be doing this, so you can expect that next week. Anyway, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you this coming Friday for Let's Talk PlayStation. Peace out.